I thought Keir handled it incredibly well, and he didn't allow himself to be blown off course. I mean, I thought the glitter rather suited him, but I mean, more seriously, it is a concern that someone could get that close, and I'm sure that issue will be reviewed to make sure it can't happen again.
OK, so Bridget, education. Here we are today, echoes of Tony Blair. You're unveiling Labour's plan for real-world primary maths to get primary school kids interested in numeracy. Sounds like Rishi Sunak's plan, which the Labour Party took the mickey out of.
No, the problem with Rishi Sunak's ideas is that they start way too late. It's no good at 16 trying to get children involved in a love of maths. We need to do it much earlier because the problems start earlier, which is why today I'm talking about Labour's plans to make sure that our youngest children and right throughout primary school get a really firm foundation in maths, that they really enjoy it, and that we support teachers in how they're teaching maths education and embedding some of those real-world examples into the teaching of maths to bring it to life for children and young people. It's Labour who's the party of high and rising standards in our schools, and I'll be saying more about that today in my conference speech. And
Bridget, part of the plan seems to be the teacher training entitlement, encouraging primary school teachers who don't actually teach maths to increase their numeracy. And of course, this has to be paid for somehow. Isn't part of the problem with the Labour Party getting into power? When Liam Byrne famously left that letter saying there's no money left, national debt was a mere 900 billion. Now it's 2.6 trillion. Where's the money going to come from? I mean, there's no doubting that the economy is in a total mess, that the Conservatives crashed it and we've got little growth to speak of. But all of the plans that we're setting out, including the plan I'm setting out today around primary numeracy, are fully funded and fully costed. Politics is about the choices that you make, and the choice that Labour would make is to end the tax breaks that private schools enjoy and to put that money into delivering a much stronger, better state education, because that's where the vast majority of our children go to school, with a real push around high and rising standards for our children in school.
Have you ever stepped foot in a private school?
I have, not officially as Shadow Education Secretary, but I have been to private schools in the past. I've used their sports facilities more recently. I'm a keen hockey player and I occasionally visit their wonderful sporting facilities as part of that team. But I'm not responsible for the actions of private schools, and my focus, if I were Education Secretary, would be on those state schools, where the 93% of children in our country go to school.
Yeah, it's interesting you acknowledge the incredible facilities a lot of these private schools allow other people to use, come in, indeed state schools within those communities. And I wonder if that's something to do with the reason you've rode back on your original plans to remove the charitable status of private schools, because I know very quietly that's gone away from one of your big pushes against the independent sector.
Well, of course, many people will pay to use the facilities that private schools have available. They operate them and will often hire them out. That's the same with state schools too. I have no problem with that. The push that we have is around making sure we can raise that VAT and business rates, those tax reliefs that I don't believe they should have, and we'll invest that money directly into state education. It's a straightforward, quick way of doing it, and we can make sure that we're putting more money into state education. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, Andrew Lewer, he sits on the cross-party Commons Education Select Committee. He said that your policies clearly underline Labour's education views are driven by spite and the politics of envy. And there is some concern that there is a risk of legal action if you go down the route of these VAT changes that could have some sort of unintended consequences for other sectors.
Look, I think those comments from that Conservative MP are frankly just ridiculous, completely out of touch with where the vast majority of parents are. They want a brilliant state education for their children. That's where your viewers will be sending their children, and they want to make sure we got really strong, high and rising standards in the state sector. That's what I'm interested in. That's what I'll be talking about this morning on conference floor. Better math skills for our children, better standards right throughout our school system. But we've got to make choices. If we want more money to invest, then that's why we'll end the tax breaks that private schools enjoy, and we'll use that money really effectively to deliver a better education. And because we all know that education is just so life-changing, particularly from children from more disadvantaged backgrounds.
Bridget, I went to a comprehensive, very proud of that, but I also don't have a problem with private schools. One of the things a lot of people say about the Labour policy, by hammering the private sector, by squeezing the pips out of them to pay for the comps, all you'll do really is the richer pupils will carry on paying, it won't affect them, and you'll squeeze out actually the hard-working, aspirational, upper working middle classes who will be chucked back into the state system, and their education will suffer as a consequence of you getting the richest to pay, and that will hammer people further down the food chain. Why is it the Labour Party seems so against private schools? I don't get where it comes from.
I fully respect parents' rights to choose what's best for their children, to choose the school that they want to see their children educated in. I have absolutely no problem with that. But my priority is driving up standards in our state schools. That has to be where our focus is. I recognise that parents want the best for their children. Of course they do, but so many middle-class parents have been priced out of private schools. They have put their fees up way beyond inflation over the course of the last decade, and that's why increasingly middle-class parents want to know that the state sector is going to continue to improve, because they simply cannot afford private education. It's way beyond the means of most people.
But it's interesting, many sort of just about managing independent schools, these sort of affordable day schools that often get very good results, have said that they simply don't think that most of the parents that send their children there will be able to absorb any sort of increase in fees that this would bring about. And it's just a really interesting situation, because we don't hear your colleague Wes Streeting saying we're going to improve standards in the NHS by forcing the closure of some of the private hospitals. You know, surely if people are using the private sector, that takes stress off the state. Lots of our viewers actually have been emailing and getting in touch saying parents who send their children to private schools should be getting some kind of tax break for taking pressure off the state sector. And in fact, you've got it the other way round.
The average fee across the country for a private school place is in the region of £16,500. That is way beyond the means of most of your viewers. And in a climate where lots of the people I represent and where voters right across Britain are facing some really tough choices week in, week out about whether they can afford to feed their kids in the way that they would like, about putting things back when they get to the checkout, I think private schools could really be looking to make some economies. Everyone's had to cut back in recent times, and I don't think private schools can be immune from some of that. But the evidence around the impact it would have, the Institute for Fiscal Studies have done a really thorough report, an independent organisation that has said this policy would raise £1.3 to £1.5 billion in net terms, and I would put that towards more teachers, better standards in our state sector.